Hi there, everybody. Welcome back. You've joined me again here today for another English story time. It's nice to have you. Thanks for tuning in. Today's story is called Little Women. This story is a classic story involving four sisters and their family life during a time of civil war in their country when things are quite difficult for everybody. How they got through this difficult time of hardship and what happened in the end. Okay? As usual, before we listen to our story, let's listen and repeat some vocabulary words so that we can better comprehend what we're listening to during the story. Okay? So, the vocabulary, I'll just read it to you. You can repeat if you'd like, and you can check out the Chinese on the screen there to understand the meaning of these words. Okay, here we go. Fireplace. Fireplace. Exchange. Exchange. Civil. Civil. Grumble. Grumble. Hardship. Hardship. Worn out. Worn out. Harsh. Harsh. Ringleader. Ringleader. Imaginative. Imaginative. Companion. Companion. Mischief. Mischief. Household. Household. Gravely. Gravely. Chestnut. Chestnut. Lock. Lock. Charitable. Charitable. Chores. Chores. Decline. Decline. Distress. Distress. Reluctantly. Reluctantly. Convince. Convince. Scarlet fever. Scarlet fever. Sorrowful. Sorrowful. Conscience. Conscience. Beloved. Beloved. Ordeal. Ordeal. Promising. Promising. Okay, that's the last of our vocabulary to listen to. We'll jump into our story now. Again, the name of our story is Little Women. And as I told you, it's about four sisters and their life during wartime in their country. It's a civil war. So both one side and another side of the country are fighting against each other. The country is fighting itself, if you will. Okay, so it's a time of war, as I said, so it's a time of great hardship for many people. And this story tells about the four sisters and how they take care of each other and how they take care of their family home and a little about how they grow and change during that period in their lives. Okay, without any further ado, we'll get started. Okay, again, it is Little Women. On a cold December evening, with snow falling softly outside, the four March sisters gathered around the fireplace in their living room. Meg, the oldest of the girls, reminded her sisters, Jo, Beth, and Amy, that they would not be exchanging gifts this Christmas. At the time, the country was in the grips of a civil war. We ought not to spend money for pleasure when our men are suffering so in the army. The girls began to grumble about their hardship and remembered better days before the war when they had enough of everything. Suddenly the clock struck 6. and the girls were awakened from their daydreams. Mother would be coming home, and they needed to prepare a warm welcome. Jo held her mother's slippers up to the light. "They are quite worn out," she said. "Marmee must have a new pair." "I thought I'd get her some with my dollar," said Beth. "No, I shall," cried Amy. Jo cut in with, "I'm the man of the family now Papa is away, and I shall provide the slippers, for he told me to take special care of Mother while he was gone." "I'll tell you what we'll do," said Beth. "Let's each get her something for Christmas and not get anything for ourselves." The March girls passed the rest of the harsh winter with music and storytelling. Jo, the ringleader, wrote imaginative plays for her sisters to perform in the big old house. As the war continued, Meg looked after the children of a well-to-do family in town. Jo was hired to be a companion to her Aunt March, and young Amy tried her best to behave at school. Jo became fast friends with the boy in the grand house next door, and the two of them got into all sorts of mischief together. Laurie, as he was called, had only his grandfather for company, and was drawn to the busy excitement of the March household of women. News arrived that their father was gravely ill, and Mrs. March worried how she would raise the money to visit him. Jo solved the problem one day by cutting and selling her long chestnut locks of hair. Shy, quiet Beth took over her mother's charitable duties, looking after the less fortunate. After completing her house-cleaning chores, she looked in on Mrs. Hummel, who had a household of sick and hungry children. As she wasn't fond of complaining, it took the March family some time to notice that their darling Beth was herself quite ill. As Beth's condition declined, Jo became her nurse. In letters to their parents, the illness was not mentioned. The girls did not want to distress their mother and father. Amy reluctantly took over Jo's duties as a companion to Aunt March. She was convinced that she would hate the work, but in the end, it served her well. She learned how to care for someone other than herself, and helped her mature into a young woman. After some time, it became apparent that Mrs. March would have to be called for. Beth had scarlet fever and may not recover. Jo took the sorrowful news quite hard, as she was closest to her quiet sister. "Beth is my conscience, and I can't give her up," she cried. Meg and Jo prayed that God would save their sister, and eventually their prayers were answered. On the eve of their mother's return, Beth's fever broke. The following year brought the end of the war, and Mr. March returned home to his beloved girls. Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy had grown closer through their ordeal, and each of them had matured in her own way. With promising futures clearly in sight, they were little women no longer. Okay, that's the end of our story. Again, in this story, we listen to how these four sisters worked together and took care of each other and grew and developed during their time of hardship, and how that one of the sisters got sick, almost died, but eventually recovered, and they all were able to pursue their dreams in the end. Okay, so they had some, as we said, difficult times during our story, but in the end, it was a happy ending. All right, let's listen to a few reading comprehension questions and see what you remember from our story, okay? Number 1, What job does Meg get? What job does Meg get? So if you recall, some of the sisters had jobs in this story. What job did Meg get? Was it A, she becomes a companion to Aunt March? B, she looks after the children of a wealthy family? C, she takes over her mother's charitable duties? Or D, she cares for Beth when she falls ill? All right, our answer is B, she looks after the children of a wealthy family. Okay, in our story we heard, as the war continued, Meg looked after the children of a well-to-do family in town. Well-to-do means wealthy or rich. Okay, so she took care of the children of a rich family. All right, here's question 2. What did Joe and Lori do together? What did Joe and Lori do together? You'll remember that Lori was a boy who lived next door. Okay, our answer choices are A, they helped out their parents. B, they liked to cause trouble. C, they liked to put on plays. Or D, they looked in on Mrs. Hummel. What did Joe and Lori do together? Okay, well, if you chose B, you are correct. They liked to cause trouble. In our story, we heard Joe became fast friends with the boy in the grand house next door, and the two of them got into all sorts of mischief together. Mischief. This is another word that has the same meaning as trouble. They got into mischief. This means they got into trouble together. Okay, on to question 3. Why did the girls finally call Mrs. March? Remember, Mrs. March is their mother. Why did they finally call their mother, Mrs. March? Was it A, because they wanted to distress her? And distress means to worry or make upset. B, because they wanted to give her slippers. C, because Beth was seriously ill. Or was it D, because because Aunt March needed a companion? Why did the girls finally call their mother Mrs. March? Okay, if you chose C, you're correct again, because Beth was seriously ill. They called their mother Mrs. March. Okay, we heard in the story, after some time it became apparent that Mrs. March would have to be called for. Beth had scarlet fever and may not recover. Okay, scarlet fever is a kind of illness, and it was a very serious illness at the time, so she was quite sick and almost about to die, so they decided to call their mother. They did not mention this to their mother before in letters because, well, they did not want to distress her or worry her. Okay, the last question here. According to this article, which of the following is true? According to this article or story, which of the following is true? A, Lori is deeply in love with Joe. B, Mrs. Hummel and Mrs. March are very close friends. C, Amy and Meg are the closest of all the sisters. Or D, Joe feels that Beth teaches her right from wrong. Okay, again the question is, according to this article, which of the following is true? Now if you chose D, you've got the right answer. Joe feels that Beth teaches her right from wrong. Okay, we heard in the story, Joe took the sorrowful news quite hard. This was the news about Beth being sick, as she was closest to her quiet sister. Beth is my conscience, and I can't give her up, she cried. Conscience was one of our vocabulary words, and you know your conscience is your ability to tell right from wrong. Okay, so that is the end of our story and the end of our questions. Again, this was Little Women that we heard today. And I think a lesson that we can take from this classic story is, again, when times are very, very difficult, not to give up. If you have friends or family members, they can help you to get through those difficult times, and you can help them as well by sticking by their side, staying with them, and helping them to manage any difficulties and troubles, obstacles, challenges that they might have. Okay? And in doing that, I think that you will grow and become a better person. So I wish you the best of luck with that. Please join me again next time for another English story. In the meantime, take care and bye-bye.